Welcome back, seekers of truth. Today we embark on a journey that will challenge our perceptions and possibly unsettle our convictions. Before we delve into the age-old question of the existence of God, we must first clear our minds of preconceived notions. Are we ready to reject religious misconceptions and open our minds to a fresh perspective? The Creator may not be God, and in this video we'll figure it out, and in the next one we'll gather the truth bit by bit. Many argue that a perfect God would create a perfect world, but is it really so? As we look around us, the world is far from perfect. Suffering, poverty, natural disasters, and conflicts abound. If a divine entity created everything, why does suffering exist? The scriptures speak of a desert paradise, and indeed, life on the planet has never been ideal. It was better during the time of the dinosaurs, for whom our ancestors were food. But glaciation destroyed them and freed up a niche for us. Given other parameters of space, the planet would not have harsh winters, droughts, struggles for survival that give rise to predation, wars, and epidemic. If God can do anything, then why did he invent suffering for the sake of enlightenment? Why do we initially know nothing about him? Few of you have read the entire Bible, because they're ancient and boring texts, useless for progress. In them, plants are created before light. God sits on a throne, on the solid sky with an ocean. Here, the moon is a large lamp, and the stars are small ones. God creates Adam from clay, Eve from his rib, and their son marries in other lands. Here, the same thing is told in different ways. People are mortal, so they're looking for some meaning in life, otherwise they would simply enjoy existence. A God like us can't be perfect. The man still has rudiments, even the tip of his tail. Our fur has fallen out under our clothes, and the remaining hair falls out due to thinking and developing strength. People decorate not only themselves, but also the gray world. Many people are not geniuses. They prefer not to think, but to believe. Thinkers doubt God. All creatures in nature are ideal for evolutionary tasks, but not for their own vanity. Various religious texts often portray God as an omnipotent, omniscient, and benevolent being, the epitome of perfection. However, these same texts also present instances of God's wrath, jealousy, and regret. These attributes seem to contradict the notion of a perfect God, don't they? If God is indeed perfect, why would he possess emotions that are considered negative or even sinful in the human context? He enjoys power and sacrifices, punished everyone for the sins of their ancestors, forced them to slaughter all living things. The appearance of problems, evil, and doubts about God are a consequence of the imperfection of his actions. According to legend, he's not confident in his creations and even kills their children to test them. Often, humans tend to view ourselves as the center of the universe, assuming that everything exists for their sake. However, the creatures live and sacrifice themselves for the sake of new generations, and the embryo even poisons the mother's body. Nature doesn't care which of the germ cells will become a complex organism. In nature, the main thing is the survival of the species, so plants become beautiful for the sake of pollinators, fruits become tasty for the sake of seed bearers, creatures become beautiful and subject to love for the sake of reproduction. There is nothing ideal in the world, and everything changes consistently. It is the cause of birth, development, and death. Germ cells undergo natural selection and reproduce our evolutionary path. People have changed over the centuries, and even animals have become smarter. Our ancestors lived in the forests, the hair of the planet, and today people are changing its appearance. And this is due not to God, but to minerals, a huge layer of dead creatures. Viruses and bacteria also evolve and darken our existence. In new situations, creatures choose from something similar in memory. This is logic, and reason is an indicator of suffering. Cold and hunger taught people to bind skins, stone, wood, and memorize it. Our intelligence has evolved along with the structure of society. Animals have no arms, their designs are simple. The biblical paradise was primitive, the biblical God was against reason, and only the forbidden fruit gave people awareness. Even boiled food isn't completely digestible. Plants and animals resist being eaten. We consume only a small part of them. Our ancestors rarely survived poisoning, so not all of their experiences became innate sensations for us. And this is why people are still poisoned. We're a link in the food chain, and although we have protected ourselves from predators, attacks on our cells lead to disease, the destruction of molecules leads to aging, and after death the body is eaten by organisms. Death begins not with sin, but with the death of almost all germ cells, and only the most fortunate continue to develop, but die at different ages. People have overcome infant mortality, and life expectancy has increased sharply, but competition for resources gives rise to wars, and at the cellular level, epidemics. Reproduction is incompatible with eternal life. Sex organs exist because of death, and are necessary for the survival of the species. Our tissues and our memory aren't designed to last forever. Matter does not break down on its own, and due to constant attacks, deep changes in the body are limited along with renewal. Creating eternally happy angels is wonderful, but creating a kingdom of death is very, very stupid. During clinical death, people see anything. Drugs and brain substances give euphoria and wonderful associations from memory. At the same time, the brain is alive and remembers events, so clinical death is a state during life that is manipulated for religious purposes. Coma, lethargy, hibernation are survival skills acquired in harsh conditions. Have you ever pondered who you were before you came into being? Even in death, particles continue their journey, morphing into intricate organisms. The reaction to imbalance turns into complex feelings. Organisms are disassembled and assembled like a construction set. Matter evolves from atoms to cosmic systems. The electrical network expands and contracts, and the shell only promotes survival. Outside the body, previous sensations and memories disappear, since these are only signals to the organs of movement and perception, returning us to a past state. Food helps us recover from destruction. Our actions are aimed at survival. We perform them thanks to earthly metals. Without them, the particles take the form of a simple cluster and can't perform complex movements. Therefore, earthly life in heaven and the necessity of the soul are a myth. The world exists according to the law of maintaining equilibrium. This is not a rule written by God, but an ordinary connection between infinite objects, obliging us to take into account their influence. This is the equals sign in the formula. The law of balance describes the world as an endless constructor, and its creation as an eternal construction, where all objects rely on each other, and your life is a connection of puzzles, a process on the surface of the planet. Evolution can't be created or stopped. It's an endless chain reaction that charges and synchronizes matter. Even the life of the sun is just a flash in space. In emptiness, internal reactions cease and the stars turn to stone. God in the void has nowhere to take inertia and nothing to transfer it to. We do everything for a reason out of inertia, and our thoughts are currents limited by the body. Even the thoughts of God are nothing for the cosmos, where behind any object there will always be an infinity of similar ones. In order to desire and think, one must be at the mercy of processes that disturb the internal balance. This is incompatible with God. If the infinity of times he didn't want and wasn't bored, this would never have happened. A creature is an object. Its forms are the boundaries of equilibrium with other objects that limit its potential. Boundless space has absolute potential. Any creature compared to him is zero. This is something from which you can infinitely move away and surpass him infinitely. There are no omnipotent beings, and God could not become a man and regain unlimited power. To do this, he needs to take away the power from everything around him, destroying all objects. To become infinity means to make it an object and subjugate it, but it is immense. God, soul, heaven are incompatible with reality. so they are placed outside of time and space. Time is a comparison of the planet's revolution with other processes. Outside of processes, there is only emptiness, and outside of space, there is only imagination. A common basis is required for the interaction of objects. Even invisible flows are the movement of particles. This is a change in boundaries in space. To interact with matter, God, soul, and heaven must consist of particles and change along with the world. The parallel world is a consequence of the myth about the globality of force constants. They are limited by background interactions and change with the density of matter in the depths of space. The speed of light is circular, not because of a grand design, but because of the synchronicity of solar radiation and the rotation of the planet, because we express it in revolution seconds. The creation of a planet by God, the interaction of soul and body would require connection, and would make them part of our world. Our world is all that there is. In its invisible part, there are only traces of reactions, weak streams of particles. The consciousness of beings is outlined by their contours, and actions require synchronicity and interaction of organs. Space is asynchronous, has no contours, and a signal will never pass through it. The cosmos can't be God. To interact with the world, God needs to be a concrete object in it. Creation is impossible without destruction, so we destroy food, cells, and the environment. Gravity allows us to act, but it destroys us and causes accidents. Cataclysms destroy some and exalt others. Survival has given rise to complex forms. The world process destroys them and creates global threats that come true in infinity for any object. Therefore, there are no eternal beings. That's all. In the next issue, we will look for the Creator, and we will definitely find something. Like and subscribe. On this channel, you will learn the truth.